5 down with 1 to go, and when you asked me before the season if I liked Nebraska's chances in East Lansing, the answer was hell no. But things took a turn for the worse in Mel Tucker's world, and now we're talking about a 2-6 team. Michigan State's been tricky to play in the past, especially on the road, but with half the fan base checked out and sights set on the future, we're looking at a really favorable spot to get bowl eligible. But even with all the drama, there's still a Big Ten team with a physical front seven, strong running backs, and a desire to win on senior day. So today, we'll talk about what it'll take for Nebraska to keep their winning streak alive and pick up this 6th win to live up to my expectations in this staff's first season. But what's up, guys? I'm Connor Hayden, and this is Corn Crazed. If you're a fan of Nebraska or the Big Ten, hit the subscribe button below so you don't miss any of my post-game reactions. And if you think Nebraska's beaten MSU to get back to a bowl game, hit the like button and help us get to 1,000. But now, let's get into it.
Thompson winds up, goes deep, got a man, touchdown!
Last night, the College Football Playoff Committee dropped their first top 25 poll this season, and the Big Ten East has Ohio State at number 1, Michigan at number 3, and Penn State at 11. But for the first time in a while, the West failed to make an appearance. It's not any surprise since Iowa needed to beat Minnesota at home last week to get to 7-1 to land somewhere in the 20s. But with everybody beating each other up, it's going to take a strong November for any of the top 4 to crack this list. A couple weeks ago, I was asked what it would take for Nebraska to get to be ranked this year or how soon it could happen. So let's talk about it. Today, there are 10 two-loss teams in the poll, and this week, there's a good chance that at least half of those lose their game. But we aren't worried about this week because a 6-3 Nebraska, whose best win would be over Illinois, won't be enough to get them there. The potential to get in comes after week 11 if they can get to 7-3 after beating a 5-4 Maryland at home. The problem there is that we'd still need a little chaos. Iowa's projected to be 8-2. Wisconsin's going to be 7-3, and then you add in USC, Kansas, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, LSU, and whoever else has that same 7-3 record, and it'll be hard for Nebraska to sneak in. But then we get to week 12. Nebraska plays a 7-3 Wisconsin team in Madison who may or may not be ranked, and the winner will move to 8-3. So at that point, there'll be an opportunity for the winner to land somewhere in the 20 to 25 range. If Nebraska does pull it off, let's say they're ranked 23rd with a home game against Iowa left on the schedule, and a win to close out the season would put them at 9-3 and somewhere in that 16 to 20 range. Now, this is all hypothetical because they've still got to get through MSU and Maryland before we can even start having these conversations. But there is a path to Matt Rule getting his first ever Big Ten team into the College Football Playoff rankings. Some of Nebraska's best games since joining the Big Ten have been against Michigan State. In 2012, I was on the bus on the way to my own football game, and I remember listening to the radio call when Taylor Martinez led a fourth quarter comeback that ended with a game-winning touchdown pass to Jamal Turner to win it by 4 in East Lansing. In 2014, my girlfriend made me hang out with her on Saturday nights while she babysat for $30 an hour. So I made the 10-year-old watch Tommy Armstrong battle it out against Connor Cook in a top 25 matchup that featured a 62-yard punt return TD by DeMornay Pearsonell, a missed field goal by MSU in the final minute, and a Tommy Armstrong interception that sealed the win for D'Antonio. And in 2015, I took my friend to his first ever game in Lincoln, and we got to watch Tommy Armstrong get revenge and pull the upset off to hand a top 10 Michigan State their first loss of that season. And this Saturday, with bowl eligibility on the line, Matt Rule has a chance to give us a new memory that we'll remember forever. Since joining the Big Ten, Nebraska's 4-3 against MSU, but 1-2 when they play them on the road. The games in East Lansing have all been pretty close. A 4-point win, 5-point loss, and then in Adrian Martinez last season, a 3-point loss in overtime. Today, the two programs are in totally different situations. Nebraska's warmed up to their new coach, and the winning culture's taken over. They're not a great team, and there's still plenty of work that needs to be done, but they know how to win against the teams they're supposed to beat. And even though they try to shoot themselves in the foot, talent takes over, and that's how they've gotten to 5-1 ever since Harburg came in at QB. Michigan State's 2 years removed from an 11-2 season that made Mel Tucker one of the highest paid head coaches in America. But after missing a bowl last season and starting slow this year, his side chick claimed Me Too, and Tucker was gone within a week. They're on a 6-game losing streak with at least 2 more losses on the schedule, so a bowl game's out of the question, and I'd argue their last chance for any feel-good moment would be this week since it's their last home game of the season. So let's start off with Michigan State's offense and what Tony White's going to have to try and defend. Noah Kim started off as their QB1, but after an injury, a 6-6 TD to interception ratio, and only completing 57% of his passes, Caden Hauser stepped in, and he's looked about the same. Sam Levitt's their true freshman dual threat QB who looked pretty good against Minnesota last week with 52 yards rushing on 6 carries and going 8 of 12 on his throws, but we have no idea who's going to start since there's an ongoing QB battle, and I wouldn't be surprised if they ended up playing both guys. Their total offense ranks 111th nationally, 1 spot behind Nebraska, but they lack star power that can make a big play at any given moment. Nathan Carter's been their starting running back ever since Jalen Berger's been out, but they're only rushing for about 100 yards a game, and in the last 3 against Rutgers, Minnesota, and Michigan, he only hit 50 yards 1 time, so Nebraska's D should shut him down with ease. Unless Levitt comes in and succeeds in the QB run game, I'm expecting these guys to throw it a bunch to Malik Carr, who's got 19 catches on the year as a tight end, and Montori Foster, who has 29 catches for 342. They rank in the top 90 nationally in passing, so even though they're not really good, we know that's going to be what they lean on to try and get points up against a defense who's dominant against the run. That traditional big O line with strong running backs that we've seen at MSU just doesn't exist this year, so I'd expect an offensive game plan similar to what we saw week 1 against Minnesota when Kaliak Manis had to throw it 40 times to keep drives alive. Their defense isn't what it used to be, but if you watched the Minnesota game last week, you saw that in the first half alone, they had 2 forced fumbles that resulted in 2 field goals to give them the early lead. They rank 54th nationally on D, which puts them ahead of both Purdue and Illinois, but only 5 spots behind Northwestern. And they only give up 126 yards rushing per game. So just like we saw the last couple of weeks, I'm expecting Harbor to come out throwing it to keep the defense honest, since the obvious way to stop Nebraska is to stack the box, have a linebacker spy, and bring a blitz. They have 7 interceptions and 5 fumble recoveries on the year, and in the Iowa and Rutgers game, that was the reason they were able to keep the score so close. This offense is known to turn the ball over, and they've been extremely unlucky in plus territory. So if I'm the DC at MSU, this whole week of practice is going to be focusing on stripping, punching, and doing whatever it takes to take the ball away. Northwestern was able to keep the game close and give their offense a chance because they forced turnovers and they limited points. So I'm guessing we'll see a similar style game this week. And the key could be Alvano making every one of his field goal tries. Just like last week, the line for this game is really low and it doesn't make much sense to me. So let's talk about it. Our sponsor for today's video is BroThrow, which is the only place I go when I want to place a bet because it's available in all 50 states. Yes, that includes Florida, Nebraska, Texas, California, all of them. It doesn't require a deposit. There are no minimums or withdrawal requirements. And most importantly, you don't pay a 10% VIG since it's not a sports book. If you bet $50 on a game, you win $50. Last week, we had over 150 Corn Craze subscribers in our BroThrow group bet on Nebraska, and they won. So if you want to bet on spreads, totals, and money lines with better odds than any sportsbook or site you use, you can join us for free at brothrow.com/GBR to start saving on the juice today. Nebraska's a 3-point favorite on the road this week, and I know playing any Big Ten team is going to be tough, but Michigan State sucks, so I would have thought this spread would be a little bigger. MSU's 1-4 against the spread against Power 5 teams, and just last week they lost to Minnesota by 15, even though they were only down by 4 going into the fourth quarter. I know it's senior day for them, and that's a reason to play their best game of the year, but for real, it would take their best game of the year if they were going to have a chance at pulling the upset. Nebraska's got more to play for with a bowl berth and the Big Ten West title still in play. They're on a hot streak and seem to get better as the year goes on, and as far as motivation goes, it's hard to say Michigan State's going to have anywhere near as much as Nebraska does. The total's set at 34.5, so Vegas expects something like a 20-14 Nebraska win. But if they just protect the ball and not give up any stupid turnovers towards the end of the game, they could hold this offense to 7 and they could win this one by at least 13. Nebraska's too unpredictable with the turnovers, so I'm done betting on the total, but I'm expecting a score similar to what we saw against Northwestern. I remember how happy I was to make it out of the non-conference slate so we could start talking about meaningful games against teams with a lot to play for, but this week it doesn't feel that way. Nebraska's living on a high and they need this win, but MSU's season was done a couple weeks ago and I don't even think they'll be able to fill the stands for their last home game of this year. For the offense, this will be a really tough matchup and a game for these true freshman receivers to get tested before some other tough ones to end the season. And just like last week, this offense has the ability to lose this game if they turn it over too much and if they can't sustain drives, but the defense refuses to let them fail, and I don't think they need more than 14 points to come out on top. So I'm taking Nebraska to win 17-10, and I'm going to bet on them to cover the spread. Then I'm going to get ready for a very positive post-game reaction where we can all breathe a sigh of relief, and in a worst-case scenario, I'm going to expect Isaac Gifford in the front 7 to come up with a game-clinching turnover to secure a 3-point victory. This is the last easy game on the schedule, and the next 3 all feature future NFL players with competent coaching staffs, teams that have something to play for, and there's a small chance Nebraska could choke and go 0-3. So to avoid any chaos, a win here is crucial. 3 turnovers means Nebraska wins by 4-7. 1 turnover means they win by 10-17, but 4 or more, and we'll be on the edge of our seat the entire way through. Just like these last 3 weeks, it's not about them. It's about us. Michigan State cannot win this game, but Nebraska can lose it. So it's on them to decide how this Saturday is going to go. But I want to know what you think, so let me know in the comments below. Who leads Nebraska in sacks this week? Does Michigan State force more than 2 turnovers, or does the offense get their act together? And what's your new record prediction if the offense somehow loses this game? I still think Nebraska would get to 6 wins, but a loss here would start to make me feel pretty nervous. But that's all I've got for today, so until next time, thank you for being here, and I'll see you in the next one. Go Big Red.